Hello there, my very good friends. On this wrestling news video, we have a potentially worrying sign for AEW.
Some all-out plans with change to injuries.
Saraya, or should I say Paige, wants back in WWE again.
And Stephanie Vaquer explains her TV time away.
Hey, look at that. Rhyming is not criming. And I'm a poet and I flipping know it. I'm Andy.
I'm Michael.
And this is the news. That was atrocious. This is the worst intro we've ever done.
We've got this.
Quite possibly. Right. Let's talk about AEW. TV implications, deals, things out with their control, potentially. Let's talk about Paramount Skydance potentially buying Warner Bros. Discovery. Now, unless you have been living, you don't pay any attention to the business stuff, Warner Bros. Discovery is AEW's media partner. It's been like that since day one. They got TBS, TNT, Collision Dynamite. They got Max, simulcasting. They're about to have the pay-per-views up on Max and all of this stuff.
In with them.
They are right in there. There are rumors online that they actually own a part of AEW. These have never been fully confirmed. It's all speculation. They've also never been totally denied by Anthony Khan and AEW in general. However, this potential merger could have big implications for AEW, at least as a television property. Because Paramount, according to the Wall Street Journal, is preparing a majority cash bid to buy Warner Bros. Discovery. Now, no formal bid has been submitted as of yet, and it is stressed in the article that this could all fall apart. It could all just drift away like tears in the rain. However, there's also a chance that might not happen, and they might end up buying Warner Bros. Discovery. Why is this significant, you ask? Why is it significant that Paramount specifically buying Warner is relevant to pro wrestling? It is relevant to pro wrestling because Paramount is a media rights partner of TKO Group following a billions and billions of dollar deal with the UFC a few short weeks ago. TKO Group is a very cutthroat organization. One of their motivations in buddying up with TNA is, in my opinion, and in the views of many, so that TNA can get a TV deal, and then that would exclude AEW's options in their next round of TV deals. If TNA goes on, say, I don't know, name a thing, CNN, it's a news network, CNN. But never mind. If TNA goes on CNN, that might mean the AEW can't negotiate with CNN.
So I'm thinking of like TNA getting on Bloomberg or something. So you flick in your national hotel rooms. It's Impact,
Sky Finance or something like that.
We got it.
But it's a market exclusion thing, trying to reduce the options available to the competition. Buying the competition's media right partner would certainly. So there's going to be people in TKO who are rooting for this for sure.
Yeah.
Because like Nick Khan and all these geezers, Ari Emanuel, these guys are sharks. They don't care. There is not. You cannot convince me that there is a single person on executive level, so above Triple H, in that company who does not. They don't care about wrestling. No. They care about making the moolah, baby. And competition exclusion is part of that. Now, it's TV rights business these days. AEW earns, $185 million a year from their deal with Warner. And the merger doesn't necessarily mean that if it happened, that deal would go away. But it does increase the likelihood of it because exclusivity clauses exist, other things exist. The networks ultimately have the power over these things. AEW's position is interesting because we don't know for sure how many people watch this show on Max, right? We don't know. BJ Bethel reported some numbers earlier this year in the region of 500,000, but they're not reported weekly like Nielsen ratings are. Leslie Nielsen only does his job for TV.
Yes.
He's not coming out for your. He doesn't understand streaming. He's like, what do you mean?
It's a naked gun, not naked numbers.
Exactly.
Not exposed.
You gotta put some clothes on those numbers, man. There's indecent exposure, if anything. But yeah, there you go. Could be a potentially rambunctious move, shall we say?
Yeah.
For AEW.
We'll see how this plays out. There's a couple of quick things on this. We were talking before we came in. CM Punk made a salient point, and it was kind of framed as a dig, but I think there's also a certain amount of positivity attached to this. When he said on Ariel Helwani that AEW wouldn't be in business as long as Tony Khan wants it to be. The point he was somewhat cynically making there was that he just has a ton of money and likes All Elite Wrestling. Yeah. So as opposed to other companies that have maybe gone out of business because the revenue streams have dried up, should all of these suddenly go away as a result of a merger and acquisition miles above AEW's head, he has the personal wealth to be able to keep the train on the tracks as opposed to companies that have gone out of business. Whether or not you want to do that for an extended period, of course, we don't know. But that's something different when you kind of look at AEW as opposed to pretty much any organisation. I got a lot more money than Crockett, was Khan's words when he was basically asked if he was up for the fight with WWE and TKO.
Poor Crockett,
he wasn't
catching strays.
He was catching strays, but he lost enough battles in the 80s that he shouldn't have to be taking strays from Tony in the 2020s.
So funny when Tony gets David Crockett in.
I know, man.
Every now and then.
It's done with love, isn't it?
I think she likes it. I don't think she does, Dave.
No,
I don't think she does.
Not sure, Dave. But as well, all the heads will remember, of course, the chilling words AOL Time Warner, which was when that merger basically kind of put WCW on borrowed time because it was no longer around the protection of Ted Turner. Jamie Kellner was the name of the executive at AOL Time Warner that took a look, saw WCW's books, didn't like wrestling anyway, and just had the reason to go, nope, gone. And that was it. And that was how obviously Vince McMahon was able to purchase it relatively for peanuts back then. Again, we don't think speculatively this sort of thing would happen to AEW, but networks making these moves does have this knock-on effect on properties of the network, which is ultimately what our stupid little wrestling companies are. They're network properties now, more than ever, because of TV rights. So it is going to be interesting to kind of see how this shakes out down the line.
Yeah, ultimately it's a TV show, and it's no different to any other TV show. If there is ownership, that is a really interesting question to think of. But hey, look, this deal could still not happen. It could fall apart. It could, it could. Everything's fine at the moment. Just something to keep an eye on for sure. And look, having more than one major wrestling company earning major money is good for the business. I don't care who your sports team is. I don't care what little company you go to war for online. All of that is complete nonsense. It's complete childish, just utter, I'm going to swear, sod it. It's complete bullshit. You just watch what you like, and I'm not online going, yes, EastEnders, Coronation Street really sucks.
There's an account that does that. I saw the other day, by the way. I didn't know
there almost certainly is. There almost certainly is. You don't have to go to war for one company or the other. Just stop being weird and I don't know. Don't be abusive to people. Just. I'm turning into an enjoy wrestling guy.
Oh no!
In my old age, even though I'm not particularly actually invested in either of them.
That's how it's easy for you to say.
But that's how it should work.
Yeah,
that's how it should work. You have periods of low investment. It doesn't mean the thing sucks. It means it's just not quite for you at the moment. It's fine. I don't sit here and go, let me tell you about this country music. I hate that because I'm a metal guy or whatever. Pop music, however, that's a different matter.
Disgusting too. Speaking of wars, let's get back in the trenches of AEW's booking, because there's had to be some changes related to injuries coming up ahead of All Out, which of course takes place on September the 20th. It's going to be counter-programming WrestlePalooza and Fight for Select. I'm joking.
That's exactly what I was talking about.
I know. That's what that was, guys. I was making a direct joke on what Murray was saying. We all know that both sides are at fault for that. No, Fight for Select. I did it again. You put a second joke in and it's like a Jenga thing. You let the whole thing fall down.
Chat get bit.
All Out has had to experience, not necessarily some changes, but there have been some creative speed bumps along the way due to injuries. Fight for Select came through, obviously, initially with the report that Wardlow was injured on his return to the business at Forbidden Door. Some people just get no look at all. He'd been out for all of that time. He comes back in the big angle, he joins the Don Callis family, and he gets hurt straight away. Further to that, now... They've gone on to since report that this has made some changes needed for All Out 2025. We've got Kyle Fletcher, the TNT champion, going up against Hangman Page for the AEW World Heavyweight title. And Sean Ross Sapp has since learned that Wardlow versus Hangman Page was on the cards for that show. Kind of makes sense when you think about it. He comes back as the new heavy of the Don Callis family. Yeah. They had that really cool moment where Takeshita was like, all right, you're all right. And then obviously Wardlow getting that spot straight away might have built up the ongoing jealousy. We're kind of seeing Takeshita's baby. Anyway, you can fantasy book it yourself, but you could see how Wardlow would have fit quite nicely into that spot as this returning monster with a bunch of history in AEW, and then obviously not on the cards. He was on television for that first episode of AEW from the ECW arena. He kind of appeared as Don Callis' heavy, but then since then the Callis family have been there en masse, and Wardlow has been missing, so they've elected obviously to take poor Big Michael off television. Shame. Fletcher Hangman is a hell of a substitution of a match. A lot of people have been rooting for Fletcher to get a spot like this for a while.
Yeah.
They've kind of built it, in my opinion, perfectly, as it might not be Fletcher's night, but you get to see just how far he can push.
Yeah, he's going to lose.
In that spot. And Wardlow, probably would have taken the L as well. It would have been a hell of an upset if he beat Hangman for the title. But I guess the biggest story here is imagine getting told, we've finally got a plan, you're finally coming back.
You're getting a world title.
World title, baby, and then it just adds to the sickness that is Wardlow's injury, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. It's the worst timing of all time. It couldn't have come at worse time for him, and after he's been out for so long as well. It's a really cruel twist of fate. I will say that I think Hangman versus Wardlow, by virtue of just Wardlow not being around much because of various injuries and American Gladiators and stuff, it's a really fresh pairing.
Yeah.
Because it's one
OGs,
that...
like the
big muscle tits, all of that stuff. He could bring that line back in the promos. Good stuff. And unfortunately, it's just not going to happen. So... it really stinks for Wardlow in particular. It's just that, I like fresh things, and I like things that are a bit new and a bit different. And even though Wardlow is obviously pretty much a day one AEW guy, he had that vignette, that Terminator vignette, where he was beating people up on a roof. Remember?
J on, is that on?
That's right. He had that, and then he was in the door with MJF and all of that stuff. Even though both of these guys have been around forever in this company, it'd be a fresh pairing because we haven't seen it in years and years and years and years. So, shame. Fletcher's interesting. I think it's probably a better match, quality-wise. I love Kyle Fletcher. He's one of my favorite people in the company. One of my favorite people in wrestling right now. I think it's a little bit too early for this, personally. I understand they needed to pivot and they needed to find someone. No problem. I would have preferred this to come a little bit later on. I'm not crazy about secondary title holders challenging for the main title. And I'm also not crazy about Kyle kind of being hot-shotted into this world title spot. I would have preferred a slower rise for him. I would have preferred him to get this title shot 6 months, a year from now. And he should lose. He should have lost that one as well. He's going to lose this one. But the idea is that he has this fragile ego mania in his head, and it needs to be shattered by a babyface. I think it's a little bit too early to do that right now. Personally, I'm a fan of patience in my wrestling booking. Sometimes I don't get that, and it's something I don't personally enjoy. But I do think the build has been good. I'm not saying it's bad. I do think the match will be excellent. I think it will be a tremendous match. I just wish it was held back a little bit different, and maybe they'd use somebody else in this spot.
I suppose, now with this story coming out as well, it does. You have that thing where when you learn about an injury or a change that's made because of an injury, it does. We're in this kind of bubble where we like what's going on behind the scenes as much as we like what's going on the screens, and you get to look at that and you get to look at it, assess it from a promotional point of view. Like when you can offer a replacement that feels like and this is no disrespect to Wardlow, a leveling up of a potential match quality, you can sort of think, oh well, they've absolutely tried to kind of slot somebody in there that's going to make you feel like you're getting more than you wanted.
I'm not faulting them for the pivot.
Yeah,
not at all.
But yeah, all the very best to Wardlow. Yeah. In yet another recovery, I suppose, and we'll see how Fletcher and Hangman turns out.
Sucks for him. I'm sure the replacement match will be great. Just like a bit more patience with this stuff, and they have been patient with Kyle so far. It's just, I don't know. I feel like a lot of times wrestling is more catered to instant gratification these days. There are other examples, certain matches in WWE that run back 5 times in a row, and you don't necessarily. There's room for patient booking and shorter term booking. I just wish this was a bit more awaited, a little bit. But we move on. We talk about Saraya. She could have fought Hangman Page for the belt. Why not?
Oh, yeah.
That's a fresh match.
Imagine that.
Never seen that before. But she still wants to go back to WWE, basically. Even though reportedly there's not been any contact from the Fed. She was on Busted Open yesterday. She's left AEW, of course. She was asked about going back, and she said, I'm always going to have that feeling because WWE is doing amazing things right now. I miss being part of the locker room. I miss being around people like Natty. I miss my sisters. I miss being part of these things. And she continued a lot. speaking about like her fan reaction in wrestling and stuff. I feel like I have done a lot for women's wrestling. My career was cut short with the neck, but now my neck is healthy. I'm in full health. I want to start training again. I want to get in the ring and bring back the Paige that I was in NXT. I watched a match I had with Natty a couple of nights ago, and I thought, man, I just missed that side of me. I need to get back in the swing of things again, so if I ever do come back, I'm ready to come back. I want to get the cardio back. I want to get the rust. And she speaks a lot about how seeing AJ Lee's return recently was pretty inspiring for her and all of this stuff, because similar levels of impact as figures in the women's division when it wasn't the most pushed or promoted thing in the company, and they became stars and all of this stuff. So yeah, lots of good stuff in there. I do think they will eventually use Saraya or Paige again. I think it's an inevitability. Royal Rumble, there you go. That's my prediction for her.
It's funny, isn't it? Like when wrestlers come in at such a prodigious young age, we were just talking about Kyle Fletcher there as an example, you get really excited about the fact that somebody is so young that there is an entire career ahead of them. There's, various different lives you can have in pro wrestling if you say you break in your late teens or your early 20s. But there is another side to that, and it's weird because the passage of time, we're now talking about when she mentions that NXT run, we're over a decade ago. That is wild, right? Yeah. And for her, I imagine it's the wildest. But it's funny that, because that can happen, and then injuries happen, or the need for a break happens, or whatever it is that takes these young, prodigious talents out of wrestling, when they're looking 10, 15 years later about wanting to get back in, we're still talking about people that are only in their mid to late 30s.
Indeed.
They've got so much of their working life left to live. And wrestling itself must be an odd one. There must be old-timers that look back at the thing and think, God, what I wouldn't give for one more night under the lights. One more, just the feeling of taking a bump and getting the roar of the crowd and all that kind of thing. If you're somebody younger than us, sat here, looking back at these tapes and going, God, I wouldn't mind one more go of that.
One more bash.
It's something that I don't think we think about when so many more people are breaking in younger. Like MJF, everything that MJF has done, he's still in his mid-20s, I remember when... who was it? Kenny Dykstra coming in at 2021 was seen as that's too young. Yeah. How's this possible, And now he's a suited up agent, isn't he, in WWE? I don't know, being a wrestler and having done so much so young and still being young enough to reflect on it, you've been in this business 50 years. Totally different headspace. I got a lot of time for Saraya's quite sort of disciplined reflection on things, and it can't be easy. Still feeling like you've got so much more left to give.
Sitting watching people doing what you think you can do and all of this stuff.
A lot of head stuff she's got to keep straight when she looks on at that. So I think there's a lot of complex figure in some respects, but I think there's a lot of people rooting, at least from a wrestling point of view, about that one next run that she clearly wants. I don't, it's okay to put it out there that you'd like that comeback.
I think she's someone who I think receives a lot of a level of hate that is totally irrational in a lot of ways as well. She's had a pretty hard life. She's had a lot of things happen to her, and there are other things, like you say, complications that you can talk about to try and counteract that point. But I don't know. She's not someone I'm super jonesing to see have a WrestleMania headlining match in or whatever. But also, if the music hits in the Royal Rumble, I'll pop.
Massive. So, She's not wrong about the legacy stuff as well. She's careful to not sort of make it sound egotistical, but she absolutely does belong in this conversation. These people that were doing it when not were. A definite trailblazer. I look at her and Emma as this right. Is this the new normal for women's wrestling? And then every takeover match improved off the back of that one.
You think you have to if you're a younger fan who wasn't around during the Monopoly years as well, the thing you have to the context you should know is that during this period in the 2000s and the 2010s, when it was in terms of your mainstream options, TNA was obviously doing quite well, but it was basically WWE. That was the shop in town. You were jonesing for anything, any slice of originality, anything that stood out, anything that was a bit different and a bit exciting. And figures like Paige and AJ Lee and Caitlyn to a degree as well, in the Divas division as it was then, were a beacon of light, and so you gravitate towards them and go, this rules, I want more of this. That's why they are held in such reverence. Working standards have soared over the years. However, I think it's also important to give people their flowers while they can still smell them. So we should be celebrating the impact these people have made. And when they come back, it should be a nice applause and a moment of respect.
Indeed. As some of Evolution 2025 was, when it wasn't being used to race through WWE's PLE deal sooner to get them onto the ESPN. And at that show, Stephanie Vaquer won the number one contenders battle royal for a Clash in Paris match that didn't happen, you may recall, because Naomi announced that she was pregnant, and then that had to go on the back burner, and then WWE delayed what was actually going to be happening with the women's title until confirming that it would be Stephanie Vaquer versus Io Sky at WrestlePalooza. However, a bit of a wrinkle in this. Stephanie Vaquer has been not used as a wrestler in recent weeks on Raw. In fact, she's not been put out in front of a live crowd, instead being in these backstage segments with Adam Pearce. This led to a bit of speculation, especially after this week's Raw, when an Io Sky contract signing was binned for no apparent reason, to such an extent that Triple H on the Pat McAfee show didn't seem to know it had happened. Yeah. All of this mystery, all of this confusion was made way still when Stephanie Vaquer then appeared in front of the loud crowd on NXT as part of the WWE supergroup that are set to take on Fatal Influence on next week's NXT Homecoming special. Caught up? Confused? Well, let me sort of give an explanation from Stephanie Vaquer herself. She was on the Unlikely with Adrian Hernandez podcast and was speaking about her recent absence and directly tackled a story that came out from Dave Meltzer, in good faith, I believe, about the possibility that she was dealing with minor injuries, but nothing that would keep her out of the WrestlePalooza match. She said, quote, "No, I see social media sometimes, many things like that. Not real, no injuries, I'm ready for Raw next Monday, so no injuries." So that was squared away straight away. She then went on to say that she was actually studying some English to try and help her with her promos in WWE. She said, quote, "I need to be honest, this is difficult for me right now. I know my English is not good or perfect yet. I've been here for 10 months and my English is maybe not so bad, but I want to learn more, so I'm trying to be brave. If I interview in English or in Spanish, I say, yeah, let's do it." She then goes on to talk about in this interview that she's kind of taking some time practicing her English speaking so she can offer like bilingual or multilingual promos in this era where WWE are permitting their talent to kind of do both and to speak comfortably. We see it with Asuka and Io Sky in particular are kind of permitted to speak in Japanese when it suits, and I guess Stephanie Vaquer just wants to add another tool, I guess, to her massive tool belt of like star making things that she currently has to offer. Yeah. So WrestlePalooza's on. She could wrestle on Raw injury wise this week if she wanted. She will wrestle on NXT next Tuesday night, and I guess all things back to normal. But I think it's kind of good that all of this has come out now, because there was just this feeling of enormous momentum behind her, and I still don't think that's necessarily stopped. Yeah. But it was weird for her.
It's been a weird month. It's been a weird month. Like, there's no real, now that we know she wasn't injured, the only real explanation you can have is that it's just crap booking. Yeah. They could have built that match is going to be unbelievable, obviously. However, it could have been moved to a little bit more elegantly in the storylines, and then like her showing up on the NXT show was like, well, why is she not on Raw? What's going on? What's going on? Who knows? I think the English thing is interesting because like she's already super over. I don't think she needs to be cutting these long English language promos to maintain that. I think the proof is in the pudding as far as her reactions goes. Totally. However, what a tremendous attitude to have. Yeah. What a tremendous work ethic. What a way to like I've never learned another language because we're idiots here in the United Kingdom. We're arrogant people who think we can get away with just speaking one.
And too often it's true as well. Our bullies the world, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a national psyche. Yeah. Whereas in other places they are much more open. In places like Belgium, where people speak like 4 or 5 languages and stuff, it's crazy. But point aside, they say that the best way to fully learn is to immerse yourself in these things, like do things like change the language on your phone to the one you're learning and stuff like that. So for her to say, I'm coming out and I'm doing interviews in English and I'm like, hell yeah, let's do it. This is hard, but let's do it. It's awesome. So she's going to go really far. She's great already. And look, if she wants to sharpen up that language stuff, it's certainly not going to harm her career, is it? So good for her. She's kicking ass.
I totally agree. It's nice when you're seeing that wrestlers are, cliches like running with a ball and that. It's all a little bit too tied to hustle culture and all that kind of thing. But there is a sort of certain thing in wrestling where when somebody is this close, you do kind of want to see, and you can tell the machine wants to get behind them. You want it all to click. And if she believes this is a way that's going to sort of continue that on, more power to her. Loads of people, rightfully so, me included, are booking her to be in one of the top matches at next year's WrestleMania. That's where she sits right. Royal Rumble winner, all that kind of thing. It's this close. It's in touch and distance.
Absolutely.
So more power to her if she wants to go get it.
Thank you for joining us for today's wrestling news. We'll be back next week. For now, check out this video that the algorithm thinks you're going to enjoy. Bye-bye. See you. Sorry, Gareth, I just stole his sign off there. Bye.
See you later.